What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with data points, on Thursday and Friday are going to be the big ones. So Thursday GDP, current forecast is negative 0.2. And then on Friday, you do have PCE. So the Feds are going to be really looking at both those data points. And in the past, both have the ability to really move the market. Aside from that, and kind of talking on Feds, you do have roughly about 3 Fed speakers every single day this week. So that in among itself should make for a very interesting / volatile time. And then on Tuesday, Wednesday, more specifically, you do have Powell. So things should be very interesting for this week. I'll throw this up. I brought this up in a couple other videos in the past, but for those of you that are interested, this goes to show how the market does interpret each Fed speaker, whether it be bullish or bearish. So on the higher end, you have Messler, Kugler, Logan, Jefferson. So those are the bullish ones. And then on the bearish side, you have Waller, I believe it's on Monday, Barkin, Harker, Williams. Those are seen as relatively bearish. So all in all, just kind of take note of that. Regardless, it should be a lot of volatility. But aside from all of that, though, the market is going to be really digesting what happened on Saturday when the States did strike Iran. Even though it wasn't massive, it was just 3 nuclear sites. I think now the market is just going to be waiting for what does Iran do. They've been clearly chirping quite a lot, saying that they're going to retaliate and that any American citizen in the general area is going to become a target. So things could get very real. And I think overall, the market does automatically assume the worst. But at the end of the day, though, no different than the whole initial kind of interaction between Iran and Israel. The market cared for roughly 2 days, and then it started to just not really just move on with life. So I think at the end of the day, the same type of situation is going to happen. So Monday, you most likely will see a red day. And you can even look at crypto as a good indication of people's appetite for risk and what could happen on Monday. So you have Bitcoin down 4.1, Ethereum down 9.6, Ripple down 8.08. So you're seeing a general pullback. So people's appetite for risk won't necessarily be there. And the only other thing I wanted to kind of talk on is this right here. So the whole back and forth between SoFi and Robinhood, even though this directly does not affect SoFi, but it looks like Robinhood is piloting a new mortgage program. And we already do know that's where kind of the whole argument came from comparing SoFi and Robinhood, is that Robinhood in the foreseeable future is going to start to do and offer more and more products that's going to be direct competition with SoFi. So at the end of the day, you're seeing a little bit of an argument again over the weekend about this, whether this is going to affect SoFi or not. But needless to say, SoFi's mortgages are not their biggest product. And I know obviously SoFi has mentioned that they're really going to be pushing and trying to prioritize that in the second half of 2025. But for right now, it's not that big of a deal. I don't really see it, but let me know your viewpoint on that. But no matter what, kind of the moral of the story is that SoFi really needs to not sit back. They cannot just expect the market to appreciate what they're doing. They need to become a little bit more innovative. I know I've mentioned that in the past, but that's moral of the story when it comes down to that. So let me know your viewpoint on that. Aside from that, and specific to SoFi, there really isn't anything planned for this upcoming week. No fireside chats or anything, so it is going to be merely at the mercy of the broader market. Going into this upcoming week, though, looking at shorts, 13% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 141 million shares overall are being shorted. So I don't really anticipate shorts to be that active in the first half of the week. Most likely they will be returning, and only because historically, whenever there's been a geopolitical type of scenario prompting a sell-off, shorts take advantage and return. Whenever it is linked to data points and it is negative, shorts tend to increase. So this is why with GDP and PCE, shorts might get a little bit more active with that. But just somewhat keep that in mind. SoFi did have a huge amount of in-the-money options. So there's roughly about 101, or I think it was roughly around that, 101,000 in-the-money options, call options. So a lot of which was covered after hours. You can kind of see after hours, there's a lot of big transactions, 29.1, 33.8 million, 24 million, 13 million, 9 million, 5, 7. So after hours on Friday was very active, but needless to say, that doesn't technically add up to the overall amount of options that are needed to be covered. So you might see a little bit of a bump up come Monday because of this, but because of potentially the sell-off that might come, then it might just get you might not even notice it all that much. But looking forward into this upcoming week, you do have 22,000 at that 15, 24,000 at that 15.50, and 129,000 at that 16. So for instance, if SoFi is able to shrug off Monday's potential sell-off and start to move higher, this is where things could get very real very fast. So again, just kind of take note of that. But for the options, the bulls are anticipating for it to be above 16 for this upcoming week. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 14.50. So kind of level ground for the most part where we did close. So something to keep in mind. But with it at 15.20, it is trading right above this R2. So 15.19 is going to be that strong pivot. So just watch for that. 14.89 will be the following support level. And then 1442. Flip side, 1566 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. And it did bounce off of that general area last Friday. So we do know that's a heavy resistance point. But if it is able to get above that, then 1690 is going to be the next strong kind of point. And in my opinion, I actually do feel at the end of Friday, it will close somewhere between this R3 and this R2, looking at the classic. So at the end of the day, I do feel that there will be a sell-off Monday, possibly even extending to Tuesday, but the rest of the week you could see a very nice recovery happen. So let me know your viewpoint on that. And one thing to kind of take note of is going back to the Fed speakers, a lot of the bearish ones are speaking Monday and Tuesday for the most part. The bulls are more in the second half of the week. So even reconfirming my kind of nice push higher with SoFi and just the broader market, but no new recent analyst ratings. On the actual chart itself, you do have that 100-day moving average at 1331, so that's going to be a key pivot. Then aside from that, you do have the 50-day moving average at 1309, and then 1284 being that 200-day moving average. So this group right here is essentially diamond support. So you could see some volatility again if things get very, very bad, and if, let's say, Iran does for whatever reason retaliate, then you could see the market somewhat overreact possibly and push it a little bit lower. So let me know your viewpoint on SoFi. There's going to be a lot of volatility in the first couple trading days, so just be aware of that. So for those of you that are waiting to buy the dip, just refer